I think it just was the perfect storm of having too much rope in the system, falling while clipping, all those bad things coming together. And I think the rope probably was starting to get tight, like when I hit the ground. I don't know how much it cushioned my fall, if at all. But in any case, yeah, foot popped and I fell to the ground.
Welcome to the Sharp End Podcast YouTube channel. I'm Ashley, the creator and hostess of the show. This podcast aims at minimizing future outdoor accidents by way of storytelling. Real people sharing real stories.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sharp End Podcast. Here with me tonight, I have a guy named Andrew, also goes by Mr. Drew or just Drew. Welcome to the show, Andrew. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners, please?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Clements. I live in Cortez, Colorado. I work for the Forest Service collecting forest health data and, living in the mountains in Colorado. Do all the mountain activities like all of us like to do. Climbing being one of them, which is the topic of this story.
Ooh, that's some foreshadowing. Where's Cortez?
Cortez is in the southwest corner of Colorado. So some listeners might know of like Durango or Telluride, in that vicinity. And then for this story, it was at Indian Creek, which a lot of people know where that is. That's about an hour and a half drive from Cortez.
That's pretty close. You're lucky you're only an hour and a half away from Indian Creek. You crazy? That's like the most amazing crack systems in the world, probably.
I'm well aware. I'm very lucky, and I can day trip to Indian Creek, which is pretty awesome.
So that's where this incident happened. So what time of year or what was the date of this incident?
Yeah, so it was on October 18th, which was a Wednesday.
Of this year, of 2023?
Of 2023, yes. I had been working a lot. I travel a lot for work to different parts of the state to collect forest health data. And I also go up to Wyoming, work in Yellowstone and the Tetons every year. And at this point, we had been kind of doing like generally like 8 to 10 days on and then taking maybe 3 to 5 days off to recover and then hitting the road again. And so after having gotten home for a couple of days, I worked on a new house that I bought, doing some renovations, and I had kind of all set it up and had like everything packed to leave again. And I had this one day, it was like, okay, this day I can go to Indian Creek and at least go get, 4 or 5 climbs in or something like that. And then try to get back there as soon as we got back from the next hitch. Because as many people know that climb at Indian Creek, like fall is money. It's
the best time to go.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it was Wednesday morning. I got up pretty early and headed out at Cortez, probably like 7 a.m. or something. Like I said, it's only an hour and a half drive. So I try to get there, when people are kind of gearing up in parking lots. Specifically if I'm not going with somebody, or if I don't really know somebody that's camped over there. Because I got a lot of friends around the country, and I know whenever they're in Indian Creek, I'll go and link up with them. So I had just gone over for the day by myself and just pulled into Super Crack parking lot, which is usually really busy. And sure enough, it was a busy day there. Even for a Wednesday, there was plenty of people there. And so I just kind of started racking up, flaking my rope out and getting it all ready, and waited, till I saw somebody who looked like they were solo, or, somebody I could ask and see if they wanted to link up and do a few pitches. And so I met a guy, Bart, in Montana, and or from Montana, and a guy named Juan, and he was visiting from Argentina actually. And we actually had one other guy. I can't remember his name. He just stayed with us for one climb and then had to jet off to Moab. So, we're in the parking lot getting our stuff together, seeing who's got, how many twos you got, how many threes you got for climbing some of those classic splitters up there. And then we headed up, and we got up there pretty early. I think there was one other pair of climbers on Incredible Handcrack at the time. And
Oh my gosh, that's such a good one.
yeah, and I've been climbing Indian Creek for a little while, but I had never gotten a chance to do Incredible Handcrack because there's always a line. But these folks were just finishing up. It was like, great, let's just do this. Maybe a little stout for a warm up, but not really that bad. So
And
we
had
did that.
Juan and Bart had they ever climbed Incredible Handcrack, or was that their first time climbing that route too?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Incredible Handcrack's actually not, the route that's part of this story. That's just where we started. So we all climbed it, had a great time. Wonderful to finally get on that climb. That thing's amazing. So since we had 4 at the time, that took a little bit of time. The one guy left, and then it was just Bart, Juan, and myself. And we moved down to another climb. It's called like Flying Pigs, something or another. I don't know. It's a 2-pitch climb, but we just did the first pitch, which is like I think it's just 510. It's got some off width sections in it that I'm not good at. Did that, and then finally moved on to our third climb, which we were kind of debating on whether doing Super Crack or this climb that's just another 510, like all of them, called Gorilla. Super Crack was starting to get into the sun, and it was fairly warm up there that day, even for the morning. So we got on Gorilla, and I was the first person to get on it. So, racked up, and Gorilla is, it's the length of most of those climbs up there. It's not as long as like Incredible Handcrack or 3 a.m. Crack or something like that. But it's all like pretty much 2s and 3s as far as Camelot size, spring-loaded Camelot size. And then there's 2 sections that are big pods where it goes to like a 4. The
Spicy.
first, yeah, and it's pretty straightforward. At least I thought.
It's like hand, knee.
yeah, maybe a little bit of fist and stuff like that. So I get up to the first pod, which is probably about 18 or 20 feet up, give or take. And I had placed 2 pieces below that. So right off the deck, pretty early, I placed a number 1 just to, kind of protect the ground fall. So I thought, got up a little further, placed a number 2, and I don't remember a whole lot of specifics about the climb, but I know after that 2, I think it narrows back down right before it busts into the number 4 pod. So I get to that pod, and I'm having to switch from like good hands, or at least tight hands, into kind of a fist size for me. And I was feeling a little uncomfortable, kind of cruising into it. And my last piece, my number 2, was probably a couple of feet below my feet. And then I had a foot jam above that, and it was back where it constricted down again. So like a number 1 foot jam, and feeling the difficulty of the climb coming into that pod, decided to place a number 4. And so pulled off my harness, put it in the wall. It was so it would have been a like a left hand clip with the rope, with the carabiner gate facing to the left, with that cam. And so that makes it kind of, I don't know if there's a term for it, but whenever you're clipping and it's kind of the palm grab versus whenever you grab the carabiner with your finger and slide the rope in, which is a lot easier to do, in my opinion. So I'm trying to clip the rope and palm grabbing the carabiner, and I drop the rope. Um, and so I just kind of take a few deep breaths and I reach back down and I grab the rope again to try to clip. And the carabiner's in the crack. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate climbing in Indian Creek. You know, sometimes you got to fish the carabiner out to clip the rope in. And so I'm trying to do that. And all the while, I think what might have happened is I probably adjusted my body weight a little bit to just maybe try to be a little more comfortable or be able to get a better grab on clipping. And I still have all the rope out to clip, and my foot pops out of the crack, and I go airborne. And so, because of how much rope I had pulled out to clip, and my last piece being a couple of feet below my feet, I had enough rope in the system that the rope didn't catch me. I fell all the way to the ground.
So
um,
let's stop for you for a second. So,
yeah.
how tall are you?
I'm about 6'1".
So 6'1", if and then plus 2 feet for the piece of pro, your last piece of pro below you, right? So that's 8 feet. Then, and I'd imagine like an arm's reach above you to clip the piece of the number 4.
Yeah.
That's maybe call it another foot and a half. So you're talking like 9.5-ish feet times 2, because then the rope goes double. So
Yeah,
this is
and then
like
plus
a
rope stretch.
plus rope stretch. So this is at least a 20-foot,
20 feet of rope
yeah,
in the system. Yeah.
20 feet of rope in the system.
Well, 40 feet of well,
40 rope, because you would,
yeah.
no, it is 20. Yeah, it'd be a 20 plus rope stretch, right?
Yeah. And I don't know, I wasn't paying attention to like how much slack my belayer had out. Um, that's not something, I want to make this clear that I fully trusted my belayer. Um, and I did not, I don't place any blame on my belayer. I think it just was the perfect storm of having too much rope in the system, falling while clipping, all those bad things coming together. And I think the rope probably was starting to get tight. Like when I hit the ground, I don't know how much it cushioned my fall, if at all. But in any case, yeah, foot popped and I fell to the ground. Whenever I fell about as perfectly as I possibly could. I landed flat on both feet, probably a little bit back, falling away from the wall. So I kind of hit my heels pretty hard. And I mean, I was wearing a helmet. I didn't hit my head. I didn't hit my back or anything like that. I just kind of accordioned and sort of rolled backwards. Um, and initially, I was thinking, wow, that could have been really bad. Um, and I felt fine, for the first few seconds. And then after I'm like kind of sit up on the ground, I start kind of assessing things. And I look at my hand, and my middle finger was laying across the rest of my hand, clearly broken. So what had happened is while
Broken
I was
from
clipping,
this joint here.
yes. So um, I'm sorry, I'm flicking you off, but
Hey,
The bone,
that's rude.
the bone between these two knuckles. So the first knuckle
Uh-huh.
off of your palm to your first big knuckle, that bone there was broken, and it was broken very badly. It was shattered. So what had happened is somehow while I was trying to clip the rope and my foot popped as I was falling, somehow the rope wrapped around my finger. And that's what whenever my body weight pulled the rope tight, it snapped my finger. Um, I didn't feel it at all. I feel like thinking back on it, I feel like I might have heard it, but I don't know for sure. But and I had talked to some other people, and they've known some people that has happened to, and their fingers just came off. So I feel like I
Right,
got
or
pretty lucky.
degloved. They call it degloving,
Yeah,
where
or
your
deglove.
skin gets essentially degloved from your bone structure, and you just have this
Right.
bone sticking out with no flesh on it. So you could have been degloved. Your whole finger could have been amputated. So it could have
Yeah,
been worse, but it sounds like you definitely had a broken bone. So that
yeah, yeah.
that's a surgery, right?
And it was very obvious that it was the rope because there was a real nice rope burn, like right where it was broken. So that was pretty obvious right away. Again, like I didn't even know until I looked at it that it was actually broken. It didn't really hurt, probably lots of adrenaline. I mean, adrenaline just from climbing, let alone the actual fall. Um, so one thing that was great is a guy nearby, and I think a lot of people I climb with, a lot of people I know, um, have some sort of medical training, whether it be just basic first aid or wilderness first aid, or even EMTs and stuff like that, and Wolfer. So a guy saw it happen. A lot of people had heard it happen, and a guy came over, and first thing he said was, "You know what we have to do, right?" Oh yeah, I do. And so I just gave him my hand because he had to straighten it, So he put a little traction on it, and we straightened it and then taped it up. Um, so after that, I was still kind of reeling from the accident, lots of adrenaline, and I was actually feeling really flush. I thought for a moment I might pass out, but I never did pass out. Um, but I was kind of pacing back and forth at the base of the cliff, and I started realizing as time went on, like uh, I wasn't. It got to the point that I couldn't walk, and I didn't realize it, until then. But I started to understand that I did something to my ankles or to my feet, um, and eventually I just had to like sit down. And that's where I had to kind of rely on the people that I was climbing with, who were awesome. They helped me out so much. They packed up my entire bag. Um, I couldn't get my harness off. They had to, undouble back my harness, pull that off. And then we started kind of talking about how I was going to get back down to the car. And if for people who don't know about super crack buttress, it's a great, easy approach, and most things there in Donnelly Canyon are pretty simple to get to. I mean, you're maybe 200 or 300 vertical feet from the car and like maybe a quarter mile or something like that. It's really not far.
It's like a 10 or 15-minute walk.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's not a big deal. I mean, I could have been like the cave wall if you know where that is. That's like a 2 hour approach or something like that. It's crazy. So we started kind of trying to figure that out, and as time kept going on, like it was just excruciatingly painful to put any weight on my feet at all. So here's where the story gets really kind of unique and funny. Is right before I had started climbing on Gorilla, I kind of looked down the wall back towards the left, back towards like incredible hand crack. And I noticed there was a guy over there with crutches and a walking boot on. And I was like, that's good for him. I mean, I don't know what he's doing up here, but he walked his happy ass all the way up here. So there he was. And so now it's after the accident, and I hobble over to him, and he was Australian or maybe Kiwi. I apologize. I don't know the difference between the accents that well. But clearly he had been climbing. He had hurt himself. He was probably there on vacation from Australia with his buddies and didn't want to just sit at the car. So he crutched his way up there, and I asked him if I could borrow his crutches and his boot to get back down to my car. And certainly he had no problem with it. And the people I was climbing with eventually ran him back up to him. But without that guy having been there, I would have had to like probably boot scoot or maybe like piggyback, be carried down the hill, because I just couldn't put any weight on my heels at all. Um, so yeah, that was great. Never caught his name. If he's listening to this, you were a superhero that day. Along with Bart and Juan, everybody was great. I really appreciate it. But yeah, got back down to the car. You know, traded some or gave my information to Bart and Juan because I had to leave 3 of my cams in the wall, my number 1, 2, and 4, and I was hoping that they could get those back to me at some point.
Have you gotten
So
those
then
back
after
yet?
that, I drove. I'm sorry. Oh no, I haven't actually. I think that maybe they lost my information or something like that. I've actually been able to talk to Juan, but I believe Bart has my cams, and I haven't heard from him yet. Hoping he lost my number, and
Well,
hoping that maybe.
Bart from Montana, if you're
Yeah,
listening to this, Bart from Montana, if you recognize this story and Drew climbing on Gorilla in Indian Creek, if any of that rings a bell, and the number 1, 2, and 4 cams are just loading your rock down a little bit too much, give this man a call. You can contact him through my website and I will connect you to him. Okay, shameless plug over. Hopefully you get that back, Drew. Moving on. What happens
Well,
next?
let me add one thing to that. I have his number 4 that got left on my harness because I was going to need 2 number 4s. So I'd like to get his number 4 back to him as well. Bart, if you hear this, holler at me, man. Um, so yeah, back to the story. Back in the car. Like I said earlier, fortunately, it's only an hour and a half drive. So drove back to Cortez. Thought about going to Moab, which is closer, but I just figured I would go in the direction of home. And so I first stop was urgent care. And walking in, well, I didn't walk into urgent care. They brought me out a wheelchair. I called them from my car from the parking lot. And as soon as I told them the mechanism of the injuries, i.e., the 18 to 20-foot fall, they immediately were like, no, dude, you have to go to the ER. Like, I guess legally they couldn't even treat me because, there could have been, they obviously didn't know, but there could have been a TBI, traumatic brain injury, for those who don't know, or some sort of spinal injury. And actually backtracking to the guy who clearly had some medical training at the cliff, as well as some other folks there. If anybody out there has taken like a wilderness first responder, you're probably aware of like the A&O plus 1, 2, 3, or 4, which is awake and alert, or no, I'm sorry, awake and oriented. I guess I should know this.
To person,
But
place, time, and event.
yeah, exactly. And they basically just kept asking me questions that pertain to that, do you know where you are? What's your name? What day is it? So on and so forth. Which was awesome, and I appreciated that. But I definitely did not hit my head or my spine or anything like that. So things were good, but it was good to have those folks around. In any case, so they told me I had to go to the ER. So I go to the ER. They X-rayed the finger to see how bad it was. It was clearly broken. And I sent you a picture of the X-ray. It's pretty shattered. Um, it was broken in a lot of different pieces. They also X-rayed both of my feet, and in my on my left foot, my left heel, I put a small, very small fracture in my calcaneus, or the heel bone. Um, so they said that was like actually pretty great that I didn't break it that bad. Oh, I mean, obviously, but apparently, if you break your heel bone, it can be really, really bad, and your foot can balloon up, and it can quite literally change, what you can and can't do moving forward in your life. I got really lucky. Mine was just
Mm.
a small little fracture. So they gave me a boot, sent me on my way, and that was pretty much it for that. The right heel, no break, just really badly bruised. And I guess they said there's like, I guess, a fat cap or something in there by the bone, and that can bruise really badly. And yeah, it was pretty painful. Even just a small little fracture, and couldn't really walk for probably about a week or so. Um, and then following the diagnosis of how bad the fracture was on my finger, they said I was going to need to go to a hand specialist in Durango, which is quite a bit bigger than Cortez. Um, so scheduled that whole deal, and went in and scheduled the surgery, which the surgery was actually the day after my 38th birthday. Um, so that was a nice little birthday present. um, and yeah, so that's kind of the most of the story. Not really getting so much into recovery, which I can. That kind of falls into my like lessons learned, I guess, really. Um,
What are
but
the lessons
um,
learned?
yeah, so first thing that I kind of beat myself up about and thought about a lot is I feel like I was being a little stubborn while I was climbing. And what I mean by that is I I was like going for the on-site. Um, and I just, looking back on it, it's like it's just not that important. And that's just me. I'm 38 years old. I'm not proven, like, I'm not a professional climber. I'm just having fun. Like, why was I so concerned with like making this climb go clean? I could have just grabbed the cam. I could have just grabbed the cam, grabbed the rope, put it in, said take, and been totally safe, finished the climb, had a great day, and like probably wouldn't even thought again about not having, red pointed or on sighted or whatever. um
Why didn't you?
Another, I'm sorry. Why didn't I just grab the
Why didn't
cam?
you?
I guess because I
Mhm.
just wanted to do it clean, being stubborn. Um, it's really all there was to it. I don't know. The other thing I could have done is, after that first time that I dropped the rope, while I was trying to clip, I could have I could have told my belayer to take then, and just taken a little, 8-foot whipper, and would have been fine. So I think that's the first lesson, and that maybe pertains more just for myself, because I know, a 24-year-old climber that's like really going for it. You know, saying don't be obsessed with the on-site might not be the words that they want to hear, but in this particular scenario, it certainly would have saved some time and money and recovery and all that. Um, I guess the another thing is maybe work on my clipping, be better at clipping in different cases and not struggling through that, and it just maybe would have gone smoother. Um, and I guess another lesson is I do take care of myself and I work out a lot. I hike all the time for my job and do all these outdoor activities, and being, I think, in good shape really made a difference on falling and having that impact, and you know just barely breaking my heel. And then of course after a few days after the fall, I started feeling achy all over, just kind of like you've been in a car wreck sort of thing. But had I maybe not been in as good a shape, I mean, I could have easily broken a leg, could have, it could have just been a lot worse. And I I guess those are kind of my takeaways from it. The big one being just climbing maybe a little safer. Um, and just could have grabbed the cam.
You're like, it looks like you're disappointed in yourself that you didn't just like grab the cam, or, but we all do things in the moment. Like maybe in the moment you're trying to push yourself, right? And so you wanted
Yeah.
to do it clean because you want to do it clean. You wanted to push yourself, and then accidents happen to everybody, and so you slipped, and then like you were saying earlier that it was a new belayer to you, and um, you were 2 feet above your last piece of pro, and haven't really practiced that type of clipping because it was the carabiner was facing the other way, and you're using your left hand instead of your right. So it's like all these things kind of align to be a bad situation. But by the look of your face and your expression right now, when you're kind of going over your lessons learned, is like you look to me like you're disappointed in yourself.
It's not so much disappointing in myself. I'm just bummed that I had to miss the rest of Indian Creek season. And I'm a very active person, and sitting around, and not being able to do stuff for a while was tough. And then also, I got a trip planned to El Potrero Chico in Mexico, and I'm, just really hoping that I can get back to the point in a quick enough time to be able to make that. So I'm disappointed in what happened, and in hindsight, I realize what I could have done to completely avoid that situation. Because I mean, it's one thing to like really go for it and to try hard and push yourself, but in my opinion, the way the accident happened, it wasn't like I wasn't really pushing myself whenever it happened. Like, if had I been trying to pull
Mm,
some hard
yeah.
move and take a fall doing that, that would be, I don't know, cooler. um,
Drew,
it's
let me see your
just
finger. Like, what kind of range do you have on your finger right now? I mean,
pretty
this
good.
was mid-October, right, this year, so it was only 2 months ago? Look at you can already
Yeah,
ball your hand into a fist. That's incredible.
yeah. I've been really aggressive with PT, which I actually kind of had. I guess you'd call them lessons learned that were during the recovery, and one of them was just like you got to go for PT. Like, you got to do it hard. You can't skip it. It sucks. It hurts every day. After I got the surgery. Oh, and I guess I should say, so I did have to have surgery on my finger, and they had to put a plate um, inside my finger there, and it's got 6 screws that go into it. And the doctor said, I think he said he was able to get like 3 of the screws to actually set, because it was just so shattered up that there wasn't really anything to like screw it into. Um, but then after I think it was 2 weeks after the surgery. So I kind of had this like stiff plate that went to like here on my arm, and then that was wrapped up. And then I think it was 2 weeks after the surgery, I could take that off and I could start trying to move it a little bit. And then following that, they took some stitches out. Um, and he said, I need to be able to get my finger to 90 degrees in 3 weeks, or I was going to have problems with it because he said the tendon was actually in pretty good shape, but whenever they did the surgery, they had to move the tendon out of the way on the top. And he said they probably did more trauma to that from the actual surgery than from the actual accident. And so he said basically the fibers in that tendon were like zigzagged instead of being paralleled because of the trauma of the surgery. And so I had to essentially stretch that thing back out. And that's what I mean by like being able to get that to 90 degrees. And he said if I wouldn't be able to do that, then it was like I guess just kind of be stuck a little bit, have a lot less mobility. So I really went hard at it. I would soak my hand in warm water to like loosen things up and pretty much just crank on this finger until like I couldn't stand the pain anymore. And that's kind of what he instructed me to do as well. He said, be mindful that the bone is still healing. So I kind of had to figure out ways to hold my finger where the break was. And then like I would push it against a wall to like get it to bend. Um, and yeah, I just worked at it really, really hard. And I was able to get there pretty quick. I still can't straighten it all the way. And he said I might not ever be able to, but seems more important to be able to do this than to do that.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, it's doing pretty good. The other week I actually did hop on top rope in a gym, or it was like an auto belay. But I don't know, maybe climbing like 5'6" or 5'7". I've started to get on the hangboard a little bit, but not my full weight, just kind of buckle my knees and put a little weight on. The thing is my whole hand is almost needing like physical therapy, not just that finger. I
Yeah.
lost a lot of muscle,
Hmm.
a little atrophy, I guess. And so, and then all the way down into the wrist. And then there was all kinds of bruises and, strains and stuff like that. Both wrists were hurt pretty bad from falling. The middle finger on my right hand got sprained pretty badly and is taking forever to heal. But I also only had this hand for, a month and a half or a month or so. So it hasn't really had a chance to heal. So that's taken a little time. And as far as my heels, they're pretty good. It definitely hurt for a while, and they still, like, at the end of the day, they'll be pretty sore. But I ran a half a mile earlier today. I just didn't have much time, but I ran a mile and a half the other day and did pretty well. And they still get a little sore. But one thing I wanted to say that, and I don't know if it's like a lessons learned thing, but something that was just incredibly helpful for my recovery, not just physically, but mentally, is I got what do you call it? A membership to the local rec center. And so starting off, just a couple of weeks after the accident, I was able to wear my boot and actually go and cycle. So at least I could do something and I could get out of the house
Hmm.
and like
So
talk
important.
to other people because I live alone. So it was kind of tough doing a lot of stuff. I had some help from my neighbor, and my ex-wife actually came over and helped me out a little bit. So shout out to them. Um, but yeah, being able to go to the gym, and then as soon as I was able to, like I was cleared to be able to like actually wash my hands, like get it wet, after the after the incisions all kind of healed. Then I started swimming, and I've never really been a swimmer, but now I love it. I swim all the time, and it's been really cool, and it's kind of been a blessing in disguise because I definitely would not have gone to the gym as frequently as I have been going, um, and I just feel like it's helped me stay in shape whenever I haven't been able to do a lot of things. And then I've met some great people. I met he's a bit of a Luddite, and I know he'll never listen to this podcast. But his name's Bobby. He's an older fella. He's in his 70s. But I met him at the gym, and he's got the second ascent of the North Pillar on Fitzroy, or or is it
Wow.
Sarah? No, that's on Fitzroy, I think. Just it was just cool. I thought it was nice to be able to
Yeah.
socialize and
Yeah.
stuff. So I feel like if you're ever in this kind of situation and you have the means and you have the facility, like go do it, work PT into your workouts and just like get the blood moving. It really will help healing
Hmm.
go a lot quicker. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, thank you for sharing your story with
Yeah, you
us.
bet.